All right. Well, welcome everyone to the traffic calming meeting for Winthorne Drive. My name is David Greaves, and I'm an engineer who works with NDOT, Nashville's Department of Transportation, on the traffic calming program. We're meeting here virtually on WebEx tonight on August 27th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. So just a little bit about the agenda for tonight before we dig into the weeds. We're going to start with kind of an overview of the program, why we're here, how this project started. Then I want to hear from you all about, what inspired some of you to apply for traffic calming. Really want to know what you're experiencing on the street, what kinds of solutions that you might have in mind. Then we're going to talk about some of the tools that we have at our disposal in this program, kind of things that we kind of piece together into a design. And then toward the end, we're going to review a preliminary design concept. Want to make it really clear that is just a rough draft that we've got in place for now for the sake of discussion. We can kind of think about, what you all as a neighborhood want to see, and then we'll be able to refine that design after tonight. And then lastly, we're going to finish up by talking about the next steps in the project and how it moves forward. Before I move on, I do want to make everyone both on the meeting and anyone who may be viewing the recording afterwards aware that we have a live survey up now. It's on Engage Nashville, which is a website that hosts a lot of different infrastructure project public engagement. And that can be accessed by going to engage.Nashville.gov/traffic-calming or scanning the QR code that's up here on the screen. So we want to hear from you tonight during the meeting, but for anyone who can't make it, or if you'd like to leave other feedback, that survey is open and we do look at it just as much as we are here tonight. So let's jump in. We're going to start with what is traffic calming. The neighborhood street traffic calming program focuses on residential streets, so not kind of commercial corridors or certainly any like larger arterial streets. And we generally tend to use physical solutions to encourage lower speeds over a significant length. So basically what that means is we're not doing like spot treatments so much as treating sections of street along, a few blocks is kind of the standard length. One of the primary goals of the traffic calming program is speed reduction, and we'll get into some details on why that is important in a couple of slides. But before that, we want to review the 3 E's of traffic calming. Those are education, enforcement, and engineering. Now we have engineering bold and underlined here because Nashville's DOT has the greatest ability to affect outcomes on our streets through design. So while we also do quite a bit of education through social media and other public announcements, this meeting is kind of an education opportunity as well. That's a fairly limited way to affect safety outcomes. Metro Nashville, through the police department, does speed enforcement. Similar to education, that's not as permanent as a fix as an engineered design. So when we see streets with issues on it, we try to combine all 3 of those E's into a strategy rather than relying on kind of those education and enforcement buckets. So tying back to the speed reduction goal of the program, this is generally part of Nashville's Vision Zero initiative. For anyone who doesn't know what Vision Zero is, it's the idea that nobody should have to be killed or seriously injured on Nashville's streets. Where that fits into speed is demonstrated by the infographic you see on the slides. But basically, what we found is when a pedestrian is struck by a car, they have an 89% chance of surviving if they're going 25 miles an hour. Unsurprisingly, that chance of survival goes down the faster you go. So at 35 miles an hour, they would only have a 68% chance of surviving. And then up towards 45, that goes all the way down to 35 miles an hour. So in the traffic calming program, when we see streets that do have high speeds happening on a regular basis, that's kind of an indicator that something could be done about the street's design to mitigate that danger for folks that are walking or biking around. This is a really popular program. So in March of 2025, when Winthorne Drive was selected, you were in a pool of over 600 neighborhood streets that have applied and are looking for traffic calming to happen. In the spring of 2025, we selected 25 neighborhood streets. That generally fits on a cycle of 6 months. So we try to do about 50 projects a year in 2 batches of about 25. So we're going to talk about the tools in a few minutes, but it's important to note that while this program does have kind of a limited palette of options in terms of what we have to design with, there are all sorts of things that Metro Nashville does outside of the traffic calming program. And for anything that may come up that sort of falls outside of the scope of our project, we want to make sure everyone's aware of Hub Nashville. So this is a great resource to make basically any request of Nashville's government. It can be transportation related, it can be debris in the roadway, or things like safety. Really, the only thing they don't want to hear about is emergencies, where 911 is the proper resource to reach out to. But pretty much everything else can be accessed by calling 311, going to hub.Nashville.gov, or using the mobile app. So talking about how Winthorne was chosen, basically when a street applies, that kicks off the process, and we then do a data collection study. So we look for vehicle speeds, how fast people are going, volume, how many cars are driving on that street per day. Those two make up the biggest chunk of that scoring formula, because essentially those two combined kind of reduce the danger that we're seeking to mitigate. And then the vulnerable user injury or fatality. So we look at the crash history. So if anybody was hit as a pedestrian or a cyclist in the last 10 years, that gets you some points. Non-driver accommodations is asking, do you have sidewalks or bike lanes on your street already? And then trip destinations are there any parks or schools, things like that nearby? So the data about Winthorne, the project is the segment that both starts and ends at Glen Park Drive. We measured an 85th percent speed of 30 miles an hour, counted 938 vehicles in the day that we did the study. The street width is relatively narrow, 19 to 22 feet. That's just about 2 traffic lanes. So we'll see how that affects some of the tools we've got. And then we did see that there were 2 crashes in the last 10 years that involved a pedestrian or a cyclist. I don't have the specific details on what happened, but I did notice that you scored some points for having that happen, which is certainly unfortunate. And then this is the map of the project extents highlighted in yellow. This is a screenshot of Nashville's live traffic calming tracker. So you can see some other streets in magenta, Finley, and Glen Park. That means that those streets have applied. Just to the north, these blue dashed lines are projects that have been installed already. I think y'all probably know about those just since you're so close by. But this is kept current. So if anyone is curious, in the future, where this project is in the process, or other projects that you may be curious about, It's online, and we can show you how to get there. So while I'm on the map here, I do want to kind of take this moment to pause and get some input from you all about what you're interested in this project being. Does it feel sort of on base that you were selected, or did anyone have any ideas when they applied for the program? We've got a pretty good group here, but feel free to just sort of come off mute if you'd like to speak.
I unmuted because I'm ready to
Okay,
speak.
great.
I applied. I'm the one who initiated the application. I was surprised to see that the average speed is 30 miles per hour. I think everyone in this group probably expected it to be higher. I'm not sure when that was taken. I don't remember seeing like a speedometer or whatever you would call it in the road. We have an infestation of modern American muscle cars in the area that like to test their engine performance on the street. I mean, I regularly see cars ripping down this road going 45, 50 miles an hour. I noticed that on the reported accidents, there's actually one that just happened last year that was not reported. One of our neighbors was walking his dog. His dog was hit by a speeding car and killed. He did not report it, so it's not on your record. That was right here on Winthorne in the middle, and the speeding car did not stop. That's all I have, I guess, to say.
I share the same feelings. It's the Dodge Chargers that are really irritating, and they're more irritating than the speed barnacles, which I also don't like. But now that we live with them up and down Curry, it's sort of like, why don't we have them on Winthorne to help mitigate the racers?
Yeah, I feel like since they've been installed in like neighboring streets, our street, now we see even more of an influx of the fast cars, because this is the only street. Even police cars use it as the cut through. So, and with small children, and especially with our school at the end of the street, it's just, we need something to help reduce the dragsters.
I hate it for the muscle cars. I agree. We live at the bottom of the stop sign on Glen Court. We see people run the stop sign frequently. However, with the speed bumps being on Curry, you know, I'm just kind of wondering, are we just trying to turn all of Nashville into a big speed bump city? They are a lot of wear and tear on our vehicles every time we pass over them. Why are we punishing, you know, all of our community just to try to slow down a couple muscle cars? I don't think it's fair. I mean, leaving the house to go to the grocery store, you're crossing over 5 speed bumps already, and it's, you know, wear and tear on your shocks, your brakes every time you go down it. And the speed bumps are on Curry are already decreasing your speed well below the posted speed limit anyways. If we could look at an option of the speed bumps that are implemented already in place on Old Glen Road. Those are concrete. They go across the entire width of the road. Those are not nearly as hard to cross over. They still successfully slow vehicles down, but they're not nearly as much wear and tear on everyone's vehicles. They're not punishing the whole crowd just for a couple of muscle cars. So that's kind of my input right now. If we could look at a different type of speed bumps or zero speed bumps, because we do have a nice brand new sidewalk as well. And thanks, guys.
No, I think all of your points are very good. Yes. I don't 100% disagree with what you said at all. Like, I do not like them either, but yeah. Thank you.
I would piggyback off that as well. I'm about midway up the road, and I see a lot of people flying down the road toward the school. More than go. I generally see like motorcycles drive up the road, and then most larger vehicles are going down the road toward the school. I do agree. I wouldn't want the setup that we have on Curry, where it's, you know, just 2 speed bumps across the entire road. So you have to, in order to hit them straight. It would be nice if we had the 3 across like there are in some other neighborhoods in Nashville that I've seen, so that you can actually hit them with all your tires at the same time, but it still has the brake for emergency vehicles to go through. That
I agree, David. Who designed that particular barnacle thing? Because you can't hit it and get all of your tire, your two front, your two backs at the same time. It kind of jolts your car around. Why is it we're not just doing asphalt, an asphalt bump all the way from one end to the other instead of this weird like rectangular thing? And because of that, because it doesn't go all the way to the edge of the street, people will try to drive around it. So like you'll see, like we have on Glengarry, people try to drive around it. So they'll get 2 of their tires on it, but then the grass is all dead to the left of it because people are trying to drive around it. Why is it the design so terrible that everyone hates it? Because I know there are speed bumps that go from one end to the other that are smooth all the way across, made of asphalt, and they only affect cars that are speeding. So if you're actually doing the speed limit of 25 miles per hour, you don't really go through much. You don't get lifted that much, but when you hit it going 45 miles an hour, your car reacts. What is the purpose of the design that they've decided on?
That is great feedback. Really appreciate you sharing. Um, I have a slide that sort of goes into the weeds of what speed cushions and tables are. Is it okay if I answer sort of all of that once we're covering that? Because it is a good question, and I just don't want to spend too much time like
Yeah,
repeating.
but I since I did apply for it, I mean, I am 100% certain I want these. We have children. A lot of us have children on the street to protect, and we've had a lot of scary close calls just getting the mail. However, I also hate them. I also hate driving my car over them. I hate them too, guys. I'm just more concerned about my 13-year-old daughter. So that's 100% why I'm into the idea of getting them. But you're right. I don't want to drive my car over them either. I wish there was a better design. I'm so looking forward to hearing what you had to say about that later.
Yeah, I would echo exactly what Tracy's saying. I have 2 young kids and see these cars come flying down the road, and it terrifies me. Again, like everybody here, hate the speed humps on Curry. And my husband and I have, complained about them since they've gone in, but we're like, we hate them. But oh my gosh, I wish we had them on our street. And I know that they serve a purpose. So yes, where we do, we don't like the speed humps on Curry, we understand it serves a purpose. And I did used to find myself going 40 miles down Curry, and I don't do that anymore. So they're annoying, but they serve such an important purpose. So would really be pro speed humps.
Are any of you guys familiar with the speed humps on Old Glen Rose Road? That
Oh,
go
yeah.
across the whole. Okay. Sorry. I'll show.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it, and I'm wondering when we get to that slide, if it just doesn't seem like, I don't know. I go slow there anyway, so I am curious of how well those big speed humps work opposed to the long speed humps on Old Glen Rose work opposed to the ones on Curry.
Great. Yeah, well, again, everyone, really appreciate you sharing that. It gives me good information that we'll be able to think about the rest of the meeting as well as when we do our design. Okay, let me collect my thoughts. So with that, I think I've got a pretty good picture that many of you agree there's a good amount of speeding that happens, especially the nuisance variety when cars are really loud. Also want to clarify that 30 miles an hour is not an average. It's a statistic called the 85th percent speed, which tells us a lot. Basically, it means that everyone that was measured, 85% were going that number or slower, and then 15% were going faster. But it can leave out some information. So like if 10% of people on the road were going 60 miles an hour, that wouldn't actually affect that 85th percent speed if 85% on the low end we're still going slow. So just want to make sure that's clear, that we know that just because it says 30 doesn't mean that we don't think there's any like excessive speeding happening. So I appreciate you clarifying that and sharing that it is, you know, a problem that you all are experiencing. We've got some questions to circle back to, so I'm going to charge ahead into our toolkit. First is the speed cushions. So let's just kind of recap what these are. They're modular rubber devices. So they're made in a factory in small sections and then pieced together on site and bolted onto existing asphalt. The reason that they have those gaps, like why they're 6 feet wide, is to reduce the impact to emergency response vehicles. So the thinking is like a larger vehicle, like a fire truck, would be able to kind of hit it right in the middle, and with their wider wheelbases, not be quite as affected, where smaller cars, as y'all have commented, do traverse them in a way that's a little more impactful at higher speeds. They are just about 3 inches tall, and they come in a variety of lengths. I hope you all don't mind, while you were talking, I looked up what's going on Old Glenrose and Curry Road, and it looks like the ones that you all have on Curry are 14 feet long, where the shorter options, 10.5 and 7 feet, sort of feel a little bit different. On a road like Winthorne, we'll typically do the 10.5 long variety, and then the 14 feet are generally more for those like real collector roads and less so the kind of local streets. So definitely we do a lot of these, and we don't do a whole lot of concrete or asphalt installations of these in the traffic calming program. And the reason for that is it really comes down to budget and speed. So in order to do like a cast in place concrete version of this, we would need to use paving tools and contractors that just would take the kind of project this is and turn it into one that's a little more elaborate. So while these do stay in a permanent sense and we think they last a long time, the installation of these is much more feasible for a program like this. So to address what's going on Glenrose, those are actually raised crossings. So they work similar to speed tables. They do go all the way across the road, and they serve a dual purpose of providing a place for people to cross the street. So they've got crosswalking markings on them, but then also making sure that vehicles slow down specifically at those locations. Speed cushions are a little more intended to be installed in like a series along the length of a road, so that along the entire length, people are driving safely and not just kind of specifically at a targeted point, if that makes sense. Similar to speed cushions are speed tables. These work the same as speed cushions. They just don't have those gaps there. We'll generally only do these if the road width is such that we can't fit an optimal number of speed cushions on there. And then generally we try to avoid them if a road would be used for emergency access. Since Winthorne has that bridge that goes over Briley Parkway, we would want to maintain that reduced impact to emergency vehicles here. So that is our like speed cushion, speed table slide. We've got a handful more tools, but I wanted to check and see if I addressed the questions that y'all had, or if there are any follow-ups before we move on.
Yeah, so
I have a question.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Matt.
A question on the speed humps, the first option, whatever those are called. You showed a couple versions there, some with 2 across and some with 3 across. What would be the prescribed thing for Winthorne? Because I do think the 3 across would actually be better
That's
in
what I
some
was
ways.
gonna say.
You could
Completely
hit it
agree.
with, both of your tires at once.
Right.
Yeah. I have bad news. So 3 cushions across fit on roadways that are 24 feet wide and up. And I don't think that Winthorne gets above 22 feet in any spots. So basically, if we were to cram 3 in there, I think we would basically not have those gaps sufficient for vehicles to traverse them. That's just a design guidance question, but I do realize that that's not the answer y'all were hoping for.
And they only come in like a 6-foot width. You couldn't do like 2 4-foot ones on either side and do a
Yeah, so
6-foot.
if they're any narrower than 6 feet, then like a regular car would be able to just kind of drive on over without being impacted.
Oh, I see.
And we've actually in neighboring municipalities seen that in action. So we know both from experience and just sort of speculating that that's the case, unfortunately. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and cover the rest of the tools we've got, and then we can take a look at the specific, kind of rough draft design that we pulled together for this meeting. Oh, before I move on, we do have a little bit of data about the impact that vertical measures have on projects. So in 2023, we did a limited study of 6 projects and found that the average speed came down from 31 miles an hour to 22 miles an hour across all of those projects. And then the 85th percent speed, that metric that I described earlier, came down from 37 to 25. So all this is just to say that we don't do these all over the place, for fun. It's because we know they work, and the results that we've collected kind of back that up. So not everywhere is an appropriate place for speed cushions. On sharp curves where you might not be able to see it coming, or kind of the crests of hills, or hills that are too steep, are all sort of spots that we might not be able to fit in as many speed cushions as we'd like. In situations like that, we can apply what are called radar feedback signs. I think there might be 1 or 2 of these on Glen Rose Avenue. I'm trying to think where another nearby one might be. But if anyone hasn't experienced these, they're essentially a solar powered sign that reports your speed back to you, and has the speed limit sign above. So for the people that may be speeding by mistake, it can be a helpful reminder that maybe go closer to the speed limit. These don't physically affect cars, and they don't do any like enforcement. So it's not taking a picture and writing people tickets like a speed camera might. It's purely like an informational sign. So on average, we saw that these tend to have a speed reduction of 6 to 7 miles an hour at the signs where they're taking that data. The caveat though is the kind of the muscle car crowd that we heard about a little bit earlier. We're not confident that this is like a comprehensive speeding solution in all cases. On wider roads, we sometimes do pavement narrowing. So if there's excess pavement in a road, it can be more comfortable to drive more quickly. I think we've all experienced this on like the highway, for instance, where you have lots of room. No one has a problem driving, 60, 70 miles an hour. But when that space gets narrowed to a tighter, kind of more claustrophobic feel, that can induce slower speeds just with sort of a psychological effect. Where there aren't sidewalks, this can sometimes help kind of define a space where one might feel more comfortable walking and not worry as much about being in conflicting space with vehicles. So that's kind of an added benefit sometimes. Similar to narrowing, but applied at intersections, we'll sometimes do what are called bulb outs. So this sort of shrinks a large intersection into a tighter one. And because those turning radii are smaller and the lanes are narrower, that forces vehicles to take turns at a slower speed. So the idea here is you would give a driver more time to see if there was another car or a pedestrian kind of crossing the road that they're turning onto. It also has the benefit of shortening the crossing distance. So this picture to the top left shows that really well, where before this was installed, to cross the street, you're walking like 50 feet from corner to corner, where after the bulb outs are installed, you're just crossing those 2 lanes. So it came down to like a 20-foot cross. It just helps people get across the road quicker and spend less time in space that they're conflicting where cars might be. On really wide roads, we'll sometimes do chicanes, similar to the 3-cushion layout. Winthorne is not quite wide enough to make these work, but they force slower speeds by inducing like side-to-side maneuvering. So rather than a nice straight run, kind of turn it into a serpentine sort of corridor. One of the downsides is that this can reduce the number of on-street parking spaces on streets where that is an important feature. And then lastly, at large intersections, we can do traffic circles. This basically turns a 4-way stop into a mini roundabout, where to make a left turn, you'd sort of go all the way around the circle before getting onto that street. And it's a good way to just make sure that intersection turning movements are happening more slowly and deliberately than before they're installed. So that is all the tools. I'm going to now flip to our concept. And again, we're showing this to get feedback from you all. This is not the final design or the only plan that we can explore. But I'll kind of walk you through what we've thought about so far and then take questions and comments and anything else. So when we do vertical measures like speed cushions, we try to place them somewhere between 300 and 500 feet apart. And we're looking to space them as evenly as we can. The reasoning behind this is we don't want gaps that are long enough for people to speed back up and like kind of make up for lost time. We found that when we put these too far apart, that tends to happen. And then too close together is both sort of diminishing returns as well as not wanting to be excessive, particularly in areas where this is a place that you all have to drive this every day. So I think that this run of 5 cushions is closer to the 300-foot end of the spacing spectrum. So there may be room to reduce the number that we're seeing here, but that's what we've put together so far. So I've hearing some feedback from you all already, but I'll go ahead and pause and just what do you all think? Love to hear any thoughts or questions.
Thoughts? That's
Yes.
too many.
Okay.
That's
Understood.
that is 6. We could, you could do 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think
it's a humorous amount that is in this plan.
I think it's really just from the stop sign that is on the right side of the map there is a downhill after that.
Yeah.
And so I think like if we could just break their speed on the first half of that downhill, so maybe 2.
Yeah.
But
And
it's
that's,
they pick up speed as they're going downhill, and then the rest is kind of straight.
well,
So I
one of
think
them
maybe
needs to be in front of your house, Tracy, for sure.
Directly in the driveway. Yeah. No, I think I like the one beyond that stop sign being there. That's sort of, I don't
Yeah.
drive over there a lot, but I know that they fight with that as well. But I think 3 between those 2 stop signs is plenty.
plenty, maybe
Mhm.
2.
5 is a lot.
I'd
Completely.
say keep all of them.
Keep
I
all,
want every bump.
you want all of them? No, don't listen to her. No,
I mean,
no.
especially if we're only going to get 2 across. So every time we hit them, we're going to be bumping one side or the other. I mean,
Well, and I
we
wonder too.
can't have a table or 3 across. Then I definitely think we still need them, but that is a lot.
David,
a
do you
quick
see a lot of?
on Google Maps. Yeah, just a quick measurement on Google Maps. It looks like it's about a 3/4 mile stretch on Curry Road where there are currently 5 speed cushions in place. And it looks like the proposed project on Winthorne is just around a 1/4 of a mile. I'm sorry, about a 1/2 mile or so. So we're talking, what, 2/3 the length of what we're looking at on Curry already. And there's already 5 on Curry over at least 50% longer length.
Yeah,
So
I think the
just
excessiveness would break the
there.
project. I think if people saw there were going to be 5 between those 2 stop signs, they wouldn't want it. But maybe
That's-
2 would be,
fine.
people are willing to.
Hey, just throwing 2 more things out there real quick. You know, what I understand, you know, worrying about kids, worrying about animals. You know, I truly hate to hear about someone's dog getting killed on Winthorne, you know, just last year. That sucks so bad. You know, but when I was growing up, I grew up on a 45-mile-per-hour highway. We had a big tree in the front yard. The rule was, do not go in front of that tree. Do not pass the tree. We were going to get in big trouble if we passed that tree. And that tree was plenty far back off that 45-mile-an-hour highway, you know, that we weren't getting close to the road. So this is, again, you know, a lot slower of a speed limit road to begin with. We do have a brand new sidewalk with a nice buffer even in between the sidewalk and the road. I just personally don't feel any need for speed cushions whatsoever. But 2 other things just to float by you. Whoever's house it ends up with in front of, I'm sure they're going to love all the extra noise all throughout the day and in the middle of the night when people hit those and they're loud as all get out. I'm sure you can hear them from inside of your house. And expect for Glen Park to be a new cut through. Glen Park doesn't have any sidewalks. And also Glen Park has a lot more on-street parking, which makes it even less desirable to be a cut-through road for anybody. But I know I'd be using it as speed cushions hit
Well, I'd
Winthorne.
rather hear the speed bumps than hear the screaming engines at 2 a.m. squealing their tires down the street, at least. And also, I'm not
Oh.
going to tell my child she can't go any
We got-
farther
we
than
got
the edge of my
purpose
yard
for the
because
stop sign.
someone is
Yeah, we
breaking the law and speeding and potentially trying to kill someone. And also, we have girls that live across the street from each other, so they do cross the street. They're allowed to go out that way. And she should be able to check the mail safely. I can't just tell my kid you're not allowed to leave the property because cars speed.
No, I never
That's not
said
fair to
anything
her.
like
It's not fair to any of us.
Yeah, you did.
No.
We had a situation just a couple weeks ago where we were using the sidewalk and someone was speeding and swerving, and I thought that he was going to run off the road and run over us. So I would like it, you know, to have, because we have a sidewalk, I think that there is even more need now for speed control along the street because people are going to be using it more.
Yeah, a sidewalk is not a buffer between our yards and the road. It is a place to walk. That is what it's for. That's why it's called a sidewalk. And I agree. I think it just ups the need for calming the traffic. People are using it more. We see a lot more people out walking, and it makes it a much more dangerous situation.
Yeah, I would echo kind of what mostly everybody else is saying. Like, yes, even on the sidewalks, I get scared when cars come flying down and I have my kids with me. And yes, I think the what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 between the 2 stop signs is way too much. 2 or 3, I think would be amazing.
Got it. We all really appreciate you sharing that feedback, and certainly it's been heard. So what I'm going to do is make a note that kind of 3 to 2 speed cushion number is what y'all are looking for, and we'll sort of circle up as a design team and make sure that everyone's comfortable with an approach like that. Any other design specific feedback? What's next in the slides is kind of our path forward. So we'll talk about the balloting and our site visit and such, but I do want to make sure that everyone's asked questions and commented to the extent that they want to.
Just to clarify, I think we were saying 2 to 3 between the 2 stop signs, but still keep that one up on the north side of that right-hand
Yes.
stop. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, so moving on, this is a flow chart of a general traffic calming project in the program. So as I mentioned earlier, this started with an application. We then did that prioritization and selection process where we collected data and sort of ran it through our scoring formula. And we're here now at the first neighborhood meeting. So after tonight, we take all the feedback that we've collected here as well as online in that survey and kind of think about the concept design a little more, sort of draft up an alternative. And then we'll do our site visit. So go out to Winthorne Drive and take a bunch of measurements, make sure that the road is as wide as we think it is. If it is wide enough to fit 3 cushions, we will do that. It's to make sure that people aren't doing that sort of drive off to the side to get around maneuver that we sometimes see. And then ultimately we'll draft up some construction plans. So once that design step has been done, we can kind of choose one of these 2 paths. We can schedule a second neighborhood meeting to take a look at what we've come up with, or we can post those plans online and basically send everyone a notice that they're up there for review and that we want you to vote, yes or no. Would you like the project that you're looking at to proceed, or would you prefer we do something else? Once that ballot happens, there is a pretty long construction queue. So I want to set expectations that we won't be able to do this solution overnight. It will be somewhere between 8 and 10 months before a yes, please do this project turns into, the actual completed construction. But just wanted to make sure that was said. So I guess we've heard a good amount of feedback and suggested changes. We are definitely going to look into reducing the number of speed cushions on that section. But is there anything else that y'all think would warrant kind of circling up for a second meeting before moving on to that ballot? Or I guess I'll just ask the group, would anyone prefer to have that second meeting, or do y'all want to just kind of move on to the voting stage?
I actually do. I have a question about maybe another option.
Sure.
We do not have a bike lane on our street. Is that something that if we were to install a bike lane, if the bumps failed, and we wanted to try something else, a bike lane, is that something that would slow down traffic? Does it tend to slow down traffic? Because yeah, we have a sidewalk for pedestrians. Bikes don't ride on sidewalks. They're not supposed to. They're supposed to be in the street. And then so to keep the bicyclists safe, at least we could have that option.
Yeah, so bike lanes at their narrowest need a street of around 30 feet wide, basically 4 or 5 feet in each lane, and then that leaves 20 feet or so for cars in the middle. a road as narrow as Winthorne, there's sort of no getting around that bikes and cars need to share that space. That is kind of a major motivator of getting vehicle speeds a little closer to how fast bikes might be going to reduce kind of those time conflicts where a bike maybe isn't able to go, 35, 40 miles an hour, but a car is. So that can kind of cause problems. Anyway, that was maybe a little off topic, but
No,
bike
it's not. So the
lanes
street's
on
not wide enough. I
Winthorne,
understand.
yeah.
Okay.
I do have a question. Would you notify those three people a speed hump's going to go in, like, if in front of your driveway or your house? Would you notify those three houses, those individuals?
Yeah, so we notify everyone of these projects. The invitation to this meeting was sent out via mailer to the owners of each of these properties, and they would be able to look at the design online before that voting happens. I will say the mail system isn't foolproof, so we do have our online page advertised on Nashville's Instagram and things like that. But beyond sending mail to people, we don't go knock on their doors or anything like that.
I think Wendy wants to know if we will know the exact placement of the speed humps before we vote on it to know exactly
Yes.
whose house is going to fall. So yeah, we'll know exactly where they are.
Yeah, the construction plans will be detailed enough that you can see where it is. We put the address numbers on the houses just to make sure everyone can know which house is theirs. And then we'll usually dimension it from a driveway. So we'll say, this cushion is 40 feet away from such and such driveway.
I have a question about, so we're on the side of Winthorne with the sidewalk. It's difficult, it will be naturally difficult for people to drive around the speed bump on this side of the road. But for the people on the other side of Winthorne without the sidewalk, there's not a hard curb there. Is there, are the tiny little bollards that you see, is that the design option? I mean, is that included as part of the design process? What keeps people from driving into neighbor across the street's yard to avoid a speed bump?
Yeah, that's a good question, and one that has forced our design process to change a little bit. So I think y'all mentioned Curry Road as an example where maybe that wasn't executed so well. From what I'm seeing, it looks like a standard set of cushions there kind of hugs the middle of the road and leaves more of a gap on the outside. Is that sort of
That's
what
right.
y'all see?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So nowadays we leave as little space on the sides that are unprotected with curbs as we can. So we'll probably place it closer to the center of that travel lane and only leave 2 feet on the edge of the roadway. And then when we're doing our site visit, we also look for that essentially. If we pick a spot for a speed cushion, we'll look around and see is there a nice flat lawn to drive on right here, or is it a mailbox, things like that. And if we are concerned that there's space for people to drive off the road and around the cushions, we'll go ahead and place a sign there that, I mean, we place signs to warn people of the cushions anyway, but we'll make sure it's placed such that there's not a gap that would tempt people to drive off the road.
I have another question. How is water drainage affected by these cushions?
It's not. Yeah, that's a great question. So water will just sort of flow around these. They stick up out of the pavement, and we don't place these so close to the gutter that any clogging is an issue. So for vertical measures like these, it doesn't have an effect. I will
So it
say,
doesn't cause the water to drain over into the yard beside wherever the speed hump is?
No, water on roadways is going to go the same places it has always gone.
Okay, thank you.
This might be a good time to circle back. That actually is not the case for this kind of the crossing treatment, like the old Glenrose. So that's one of the reasons that those kind of concrete full road speed tables are a little more challenging to install, is they can create a low point in the road that either needs some additional drainage features, or we just want to make sure the ditches on the side are prepared for it. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up. It is one of the many kind of wonky details we get concerned about. Can I circle back to the second meeting or no second meeting question? We're happy to do either way. I just want to kind of gauge if you all have a preference.
I don't think that we need a second meeting.
I agree with that. I think if we can see the sort of revised designs that, I
Right.
think it probably, this conversation could take place over, online.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree. I don't think there's a need for a second. But thank you for starting this, Tracy. Thank you for getting the ball rolling. It sounds like we have you to thank for it. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we can go ahead and make that the plan. So with that, we'll go into a little more detail on this online ballot section of the slides. So I just want to make sure everyone is like abundantly aware of how this is supposed to work. So similar to the invitation that we sent inviting y'all to this meeting, we'll send out cards that say, hey, it's time to vote. The plans are online. The ballot period is open for 6 weeks. That's deliberate. So we want to make sure that there's plenty of time for you all to like digest the plans, make sure everyone has had the opportunity to get the card. Ideally, we hope that y'all kind of spread the word a little bit, make sure that no one like threw theirs in the trash or anything. It will have a link to the online ballot and a phone number that you can call if you'd prefer to vote by phone. So we know that there are people that don't use the internet as much as others. So that's an option. And then the ballot is just asking yes or no. So you'll be able to review the plans that are posted and then decide, I would like for this to proceed, or I would rather it not. The project is considered a go, like a success, if 66% of respondents vote yes. So that's only if you vote, your vote counts. It's like any election. We're not looking for like 2/3 of every single property owner to say yes to this.
Is that one vote per house or?
Yeah, glad you asked. This is on the next slide. So it is one vote per residential property, church, or school. And it is only those properties that are touching the affected right of way. So owners with multiple properties will also just get the one vote. Like we don't send 5 to the same person if they own 5 houses. And then we also make sure there's like a building on it. So we'll sometimes encounter empty lots, and we know that obviously that's not a residence. So we'll exclude those as well.
And do renters get to vote, or does it have to be the property owner, the
It
landlord?
is the property owner, so not renters. I do want to make sure that everyone's aware. We want to hear from renters just as much as property owners in this like feedback phase. But the program policy as it currently stands is that we send this to the owner of the property, and they're the person that is voting. If anyone is renting though and does feel strongly about, one way or another, definitely get in touch with your landlord. We want to make sure that we're including people as much as we can under the current policy, but yes, right now owners are the ones that are voting on this. Any other questions about kind of those balloting specifics? If not, I'll underscore that if you think you should have gotten a ballot, don't hesitate to reach out. We can look up your code pretty easily. So no need to worry if it got lost or something. We'll make sure that you can get your information. But yeah, anything else? That's about all I've got on content here.
This has been really
How
great.
soon-
Thank you.
Sorry. I was just gonna say, how soon will it be that we get the revision of the placement of the humps?
That's a good question. We shoot for between 1 and 2 months. Basically, we need to do our site visit, kind of considering the feedback we've collected tonight, and then taking our measurements and things, and then drafting those construction plans takes a little while. So yeah, in the neighborhood of 1 to 2 months is sort of what we're looking at.
Thank you for your time, David. Thanks for doing this for us.
Yeah, thank you all. Really appreciate the feedback y'all have and the time that you took to join us tonight.
All right. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.
Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.